At the beginning of the story, we see Boyka has just been released from Russia's most feared prison. Now he is fully determined to rule the MMA rings of the world, but he has no idea how painful and difficult the road to becoming world famous will be. Currently, Boyka is living in Kyiv. He trains there and fights there. However, the dark truth of his life is that he spent 10 brutal years in a harsh prison, where he fought hundreds of underground fights just to survive and earn his freedom. Anyone else in his place might have given up and forgotten their dreams, but Boyka is made of something different. He doesn't want to be the champion of a prison. He wants to be the champion of the real world. A twist in the story comes when back in Black Hills Prison, where Boyka once ruled, a new and extremely dangerous fighter appears, known as the Nightmare. In between fights, Boyka often visits a local church and donates large amounts of money. In fact, he personally funded the construction of that church because he wants to atone for his past sins by following the path of faith. The priest, however, always doubts Boyka's violent lifestyle. But Boyka believes that God gave him a unique gift for fighting, and not using it would be an insult to God and a great sin. With this belief, he continues his training. Soon his trainer Kirill brings him a huge opportunity. This is not just another underground fight, it is an official qualifying match that could earn him a direct ticket to the International European MMA Championship. To test his destiny, Yuri travels to Budapest with his trainer. Boyka is focused only on victory. The excitement is high because major talent scouts are sitting in the front row, ready to offer million-dollar contracts to the best fighters. The ring is ready, and the biggest fight of the year begins. From the very start, it becomes clear that Boyka is facing a powerful athlete. In the first few seconds, he barely manages to defend himself from the opponent's fast strikes. But this only awakens the beast inside him. Furious, he launches a brutal counterattack, landing heavy blows to his opponent's chest and head. The opponent's mouthguard flies out, and he can barely stand. Thinking the fight is over, Boyka starts celebrating, but the opponent refuses to quit and stands up again. Now Boyka explodes with rage, raining punches and kicks so fiercely that the entire ring seems to shake. Finally, Boyka wins in spectacular fashion. After the fight, talent scouts rush toward him, saying they haven't seen such a deadly performance in years. They invite him to participate in a major tournament in Budapest 2 weeks later. Boyka agrees and collects his prize money. However, as he leaves the arena, he sees his opponent being carried away on a stretcher. Soon he learns that the fighter is in critical condition and has been admitted to the ICU. The news shakes him deeply. He remembers the priest's warning from 2 days earlier. The next morning, he wakes up from a terrifying nightmare and rushes to the training center where Kirill is sitting. Boyka immediately asks about the fighter. At first, Kirill doesn't understand why Boyka cares. After all, he won. But when Boyka insists, Kirill reveals the bitter truth. The fighter has died. Boyka is stunned. Voice trembles as he asks for the man's name. It was Viktor, a man from a small Russian town called Drovny. Kirill tells him this is part of the ring. Every fighter knows the risks. But Boyka cannot accept it. When he sees a picture of Viktor with his wife, his heart melts. He decides he must go to Russia and seek redemption. Even though he is a fugitive there for escaping prison through underground fights, he orders his assistant to arrange a fake passport and forge documents. Meanwhile, in Drovny, Viktor's funeral is taking place. A shady man approaches Viktor's widow and shamelessly tells her that Viktor's death does not cancel the debt. She must now pay it. Risking everything, Boyka crosses the Russian border using fake documents. He checks into a hotel and goes straight to the children's center where Viktor's wife works. But before he can speak to her, some thugs arrive, force her into a black car, and drive away. Boyka intimidates the security guard and learns she has been taken to another job. When he reaches the address, he realizes it is not an ordinary place. It is a nightclub where illegal and brutal MMA fights take place at night. Standing at the door, Boyka watches the club's undefeated champion, Igor Kazmir, fighting in the ring. Igor fights dirty, using unfair tactics, which makes Boyka furious. Suddenly, Boyka spots Viktor's wife in the crowd, working as a waitress. He tries to approach her, but before he can reach her, the bouncers notice him and roughly throw him out of the club. The bouncers openly warn Boyka that the girl belongs to their boss and that he has no right even to go near her. But provoking Boyka is a mistake. In the blink of an eye, with cheetah-like speed, he takes down the gorilla-sized bouncers and leaves them on the ground. Just then, the same cunning man steps out from the building across the street and introduces himself as Zarub, Impressed by Boyka's skills, he applauds and reveals that the entire club belongs to him. The local crime boss even offers Boyka a place by his side, but Boyka refuses. He makes it clear that he is only there to speak to the waitress. Zurab denies his request and orders his men to keep an eye on Yuri. Threats from small-time criminals cannot scare Boyka. The very next day, goes to Alma's office again, knocks out another one of Zurab's men, and walks straight inside. At first, he cannot gather the courage to tell the widow the truth. He simply expresses sorrow over Viktor's death and hands Alma her husband's final letter. But when she asks how he knew Viktor, Boyka can no longer hide his identity and confesses everything. When he asks if there is anything he can do for her, Alma breaks down. Only her husband back alive. Boyka tries to give her his fight earnings, but she rejects the money, calling it bloodstained. She calls him a killer and throws him out. Meanwhile, new fighters continue arriving at Zarb's club, but none impress him. He is searching for a true champion who can turn his underground arena into a sensational spectacle. That search ends when Yuri Boyka himself knocks on his door. Boyka offers a deal. He will fight in Zurab's ring if Alma is freed from her debt. Zurab agrees, but Boyka must win 3 brutal fights, and the last one will be against the club's top champion. Boyka accepts, promising to finish all 3 within a week. Suddenly, Zurab publicly shouts Boyka's real name, revealing that even his fake passport could not fool the mafia. Boyka is trapped. He calls his trainer Kirill and says he must stay another week. Despite warnings, Boyka moves his ticket date forward. The first fight arrives. Boyka faces a surprisingly tough opponent, but makes a powerful comeback and forces him to submit. Outside the ring, Alma silently hands him water. Later, he asks if there's another gym nearby, because he refuses to train in Zurab's place. Alma invites him to train at the Children's Center, the same place where Viktor once prepared for his fights. The second fight is even more dangerous. Boyka is tricked into facing the Ozerov brothers, 2 fighters at once. Despite severe blows and a painful strike to his injured lower back, Boyka pushes through the pain and knocks them both out. The crowd chants his name, and for the first time, Alma's eyes show respect instead of hatred. The next morning, Zurabeth bribes a police officer to release the monstrous prison fighter known as the Nightmare. He wants one final spectacle. Meanwhile, Boyka continues training despite his injury. Alma begins softening toward him. Full truth about that tragic night, Boyka confesses everything: his violent past, his years in prison, and how ambition blinded him. To him, Viktor was not a person at that moment, but merely an obstacle in the way of his golden dream. He admits his regret cannot bring Viktor back, but he is sincerely ashamed. Then comes the long-awaited showdown: Boyka versus Igor Kazmir. Igor fights dirty, targeting Boyka's injured back and even striking unfairly. Boyka nearly loses, but after locking eyes with Alma, he finds new strength and knocks Igor out with a devastating kick. Boyka believes the deal is complete and prepares to leave for Budapest. But Zurab betrays him, claiming Igor was never the real champion. He gives Boyka an ultimatum: one final fight, or Alma remains his slave. The final fight is announced: Yuri Boyka versus the Nightmare. The giant fighter is twice Boyka's size. In the first minute, a brutal punch knocks Boyka down, and the crowd assumes he has lost. But Boyka rises again. Fighting through unbearable pain, he exhausts the monster, and finally defeats him with a crushing submission hold. As Boyka celebrates, he sees Zurab dragging Alma away. Armed guards attack him and beat him mercilessly. Amid chaos and gunfire, Boyka, even while wounded, fights back. He is shot, but refuses to stop. In a final confrontation, he uses his last strength to stop Zurab and end him, bleeding heavily. Boyka apologizes to Alma with true remorse in his eyes. Then, without waiting for punishment, he surrenders himself to the police. 6 months later, Boyka is back in Black Hills prison. This time, Alma visits him. She says she once hated him, but he proved that goodness still exists in the world. She thanks him for restoring her freedom and dignity, and finally forgives him. In the final scene, Boyka steps into the prison ring once more. But now, he fights not as a criminal, but as a true champion.